three phrases there that I'm not sure if everyone will be familiar with. Does anyone know what neoteny means?
I obviously.
What do you think, Marcus? Oh, did you? Oh, what did you get?
I can't remember.
Okay, so neoteny in this context means the retention of juvenile characteristics in adult life. And the reason why we called ourselves that is because it reminds us that the human-centered design process that we follow should be collaborative, playful and fun. And it also should involve users. So that's really what human-centered design means in this context. Has anyone heard of human-centered design before? Yeah? Okay, help me out here, kids. Human-centered design, for those of you who have heard about it, may know this, but basically it came about because in the 18th and 19th centuries, users weren't really incorporated into design too much. So, for example, if a user or a factory worker didn't fit a machine, then it was the user's fault, not the machine's fault. And then leading up to the Second World War, when mass production and things like that started, and mainly just because of the driving force was increased revenue, people started to realise that we needed to incorporate the user into design if we were going to be effective and create real impact. And that maybe we could learn from these people. So that's when factory workers and things started being asked how they'd like to work with machines in factory lines and things like that. So that's generally how that came about. But really what it means is to just privilege the customer and the user in the design. And service design, has anyone heard of that? No? Okay. Service design on paper means basically an economic transaction that doesn't result in any ownership. So that may be something like a shared laundromat in a community, so no one really owns it, but everyone has some sort of interaction with that service. It may be a hospital service, so in healthcare. It may be an education service, so a public school, for example. But then it may be also more consumerist things like a financial service, so an ATM, for example, that provides a service and we use it every day. So we look at every aspect of that service at our company. So I've got a product design background and that's evolved into service design in the recent years. So I'm going to show you some examples of our processes, and I've chosen 4 or 5 to go through with you today. And I'm going to use the example of the little headsets that you get in a gallery or a museum. So they've come about in the recent years, and it's a really good example of great service design. So instead of having to read the little blurb on the wall, you can now purchase a device that you can clip to your belt, put on the headset and walk around the museum. Is everyone familiar with those? Yeah, cool. So this is some examples of work that we've done at Neoteny recently. So this is a huge web application for a financial company, for Westpac. Basically what it is it enables financial advisors to transact online using investors' money, basically. Pretty boring project, but what we tried to do is empower the client by teaching them various design processes and techniques so that they could solve some of their problems themselves. This is a CPAP device. What CPAP stands for is continuous positive airway pressure, and it's used for patients that are diagnosed with sleep apnea. And sleep apnea is a pretty serious medical condition where patients are involuntarily waking up during the night because they stop breathing. So it's potentially life-threatening, and 2 to 4% of the American population suffers from this. So this is a pretty important project for us. Does anyone know what this is? Oh, now you give me something. Anyone? What is it? TARDIS. It is a police box. What else is it? Did someone yell out TARDIS?
Yeah. Public toilets.
It's a telephone box. Okay. It's actually the TARDIS from the TV series Doctor Who. I'm a bit of a Doctor Who fan. But the reason why I'm showing it to you it's not just random, there is a point. And the point is that Doctor Who and his companions travel around in the TARDIS. And they travel throughout the galaxy and they visit various planets. And those planets have various species on them that speak different languages to them. So it wouldn't be a very entertaining show if they couldn't speak to those different species. So what the TARDIS does, because it's so intelligent, is translates the language for Doctor Who and his companions so that they can all share experiences and communicate together. So what we do at Neoteny, using various human-centered design methods, is try to enable these TARDIS-like moments with our clients. So what that means is we try to develop a shared language so that everyone can contribute regardless of their technical or design capacity. The first step in that process is developing what we call user stories. So I've heard Andrew was talking about how he develops a story and that there's a beginning and an end. So I guess the beginning for us is a design problem. So a client comes to us and they say, we've got this great idea to fund a project that instead of having the blurb at galleries and museums on the wall, we're going to actually record it so that people can walk around at museums at their own pace. And we say, wow, that's a really cool idea, we'd like to do that project. And the first process for us is to take all of the existing project information, so that might be brand information, it might be from the marketing team, it might be technical constraints, budget constraints, etc. And we feed it through our translation device, which in this case is the TARDIS, and what pops out is what we call user stories. And a user story in this context is a short statement that details the user, the role of the user, and what they're trying to achieve in the system. We find that these are extremely powerful because they're really accessible and anyone can use them. So whether you're a guy in the tech team, whether you're the marketing person, whether you're the client, whether you're the designer, you can all have a shared discussion using these user stories. So they take away those barriers that can sometimes exist between the different business units, but also between the clients and the designers. So we generally develop these together with our clients, and sometimes we might come up with 500 of them for a job. What we do then is what we call theming. So we take all of those user stories and we group like ones. So you may have heard this is called sometimes Affinity Mapping, where we collect groups of things that are the same. So they may be things like collecting the device or walking around a museum listening to the device or dropping off the device. What that helps us to do is very quickly get a sense of scale from the design team, so we can start to look at how we're going to estimate this project, because we can see how big it's going to be, but also the certain complexities within the project. The next step for us is prioritization, and this is a really important one because obviously we're working in a world where we've got pretty serious constraints, and those constraints are normally things like budget and timeframes. But also, they may be various business objectives and project objectives. So the company may need to make X amount of dollars from this design, or they need to make some sort of impact. So what we do is sit down with our clients and we go from everything that we could do, which might be a list of those 500 user stories, and we move to everything that we should do in this project. So nothing really gets thrown away, but what we're trying to do is understand the relative importance of everything that we could do so that we can focus on the most important parts first. This is one of our clients who's the CEO of an online marketing and performance company. And he's there building a scenario, or what you may call a storyboard. So we actually try to empower our clients so that they can do these things themselves, and this is a workshop that we did with him. So what a scenario is mapping out what a user wants to do. So trying to understand what their intention is and thinking about how we might do that by mapping out each step along the way. And that might look something like this, where we lay out post-it notes on a wall because it's quick, cheap and dirty. And if we map all of the different scenarios, we can start to see all of the various common patterns, but also the relationships between the different user types. So there was a reference before to characters. So I guess in our context, characters are users, but they're also the client and the designers. So we're really trying to understand what these people want, need and desire. This is an example of a prototype, and I won't go into this in much detail because we're actually doing a live prototyping challenge tomorrow afternoon, and we're going to hopefully do one of these with the audience. But what this is there's some parts of those scenarios that we may not understand. So it may be how are we actually going to troubleshoot these devices in the museum? What happens if someone breaks it? What are we going to do? So we may actually map out what that support structure may look like. Most of the time we use, again, butcher's paper and post-it notes because it's cheap and we don't want to waste clients' money before we know that things are going to work. So we may do digital prototypes, but generally we like to get our hands dirty with markers, paints, Lego, post-it notes and things like that. Mainly because it's more fun, but also because it means that the client can take part in that, which is really important. So I'll leave it there because I'm running out of time. I've got a little tap on the water bottle there. I assume that's because you want me to stop. Yeah. Hopefully that was useful. Obviously there's a lot of methods that we use, but there's some that I thought you might find valuable in your process, and I really look forward to hearing what you do and how we can learn from you, because I think our industries are actually quite similar. Sorry, I'll shut up now.
No, that's great. I'm actually amazed that you get to make things with Lego at work every day and you're jealous of other people's jobs. I don't believe that. I want to come and work with you. All right, so I'm thinking, do you guys have any questions for each other before we throw it over to these guys out here?
I'm just going to take my stuff off there because it looks like I'm doing a
serious
plug. But did everyone get it down?
Right, that's
Why don't you leave it on that? That's pretty.
All right, anyone, do you guys have any comments for each other before we throw it out? Do any of you work with Lego?
Well, interestingly, when we were talking about Terry Jones before, the first meeting we had about this, they turned up with lots of modeling clay, images to produce it. And we all sat around and had to make out of these as if it was not. Clay, which I thought was interesting. Meeting like that. So, but I think it's quite so many different aspects of it. Essentially everything you do in us business driven requires the same processes and the same elimination processes as well.
Absolutely.
You can talk, you just showed a video, you talk a lot about your process. Can you just give us a quick rundown on whether you use methods that are similar to any of these days?
Well, yeah, I was just been thinking about it, and it's really, like, I wear two different hats. So there's sort of the advertising world hat and sort of my own personal work. And I think the way that I approach those things is how do I want somebody to behave in, you know, an hour after seeing my work or a day after seeing it. And I take that and I put out to, you know, how do I want my work to affect their behavior 20 years from now? And I sort of say, all right, well, how do you go about implementing that? So that's, like, as an animator, artist, designer, I think that what we're all doing is sculpting that behavior in the long term. But then I sort of think, all right, well, sometimes as you put your artist hat on, you have to sort of be really selfish. You have to completely just get rid of all those notions that just follow your gut. So I think it's a really careful balance.
Those of you that are up the back, there's a bit of space. There's a bit of space in this row here, and a few of the spaces through there if you want us to creep away. Has anyone got questions out there in the audience or comments? Yep, down here at the front. Do you have a microphone or anything, or stand up and project it back to the room? No, there's a microphone. Yeah. Go on. Microphone? Yes. That's how I know what everyone's name is, even though you guys don't.
Sorry, when you were talking about swapping the story, You mentioned that you'll find the beginning and then the next thing that you'll focus on is finding the end. I suppose